The first night Jenna started doing her security rounds, I was up to my elbows in a crawl space in Oak Cliff, wedged between a gas line and a pile of old insulation that smelled like mouse musk and festivals from decades ago. My phone buzzed against my leg. She texted a photo of a keypad glowing blue in the dark and wrote, "Midnight walkthrough. Safer if I go late." In the same second, the motion sensor in that crawlspace clicked. A rat shot past my wrist, and I flinched hard enough to smack the beam. I stared at her photo and felt something small and precise shift inside my chest, like the first tooth loosened by an apple. I'm Caleb, 39. I make a living convincing things with teeth and more children than sense to leave people's houses. There's a rhythm to Pest work if you listen, the scratch behind the baseboard, the chew marks that line up like a bad haircut, the grease streaks along a joist where bodies have brushed 100 times. You learn that what people swear is random is actually habit repeating. You learn that holes are never where people think. In Dallas, you also learn not to judge a house by its stone facade. The rats love the high-end stuff. So do people. Jenna is a manager at a property firm that handles rental portfolios all over Dallas County. She's the one they send when a place needs to be rescued for a showing, trash out, air freshener hidden, lights flipped, an orchid placed just so. She's good at walking in like a storm never happened. She's even better at smiling while she bills for it. That used to impress me. It still does, a little. We met after one of those rescue jobs. I'd been called to a duplex in East Dallas that looked like a Pinterest board from the street and a raccoon ballad inside. When I climbed down from the attic covered in insulation in defeat, she was standing in the kitchen with a clipboard and coffee, wearing a blazer too clean for that room. "You look like a snowman who lost a fight," she said, then handed me a towel. By the time I'd vacuumed the soffit and she'd set a bowl of lemons to trick noses, we were trading stories about our worst calls. I told her about the time I found a possum sleeping in a cereal box. She told me about an open house where the sewer burped like a tuba. I walked her to her car, and she unlocked it with a key fob that chirped like a toy bird. We were married 2 years later, both of us certain we'd solved for each other's mess. The late-night inspections started in June, when the air gets as thick as glazed donuts and everyone pretends they're fine. Jenna said it was safer to check houses after dark so no one bothered her. That made no sense to me, but I picked my battles. Then she started saying, "owner," in a way that made the word feel like a strain. "This owner is a headache," she'd say. "This owner wants to convert 6 short-term units to long-term but is afraid to lose his income stream." I'd nod into my plate and try to keep my face from sliding. The owner had a name, Blake, but she kept defaulting to the title, like saying it enough would make him abstract and not a person in her texts. The first real slip wasn't a text, it was a trunk. On a Saturday, the same day my back gave out under a water softener someone installed like a joke. Jenna said, "Can you grab the paper towels from my car?" I walked out to the driveway and popped her liftgate. On top, there were the usual staging supplies. Lemons, a spiky plant, a neutral throw blanket with fringes that always make me itch. Under those sat a tote bag with the Airbnb logo, a new one, not a giveaway from a conference. The bag was packed with little toiletries like a hotel would give, shampoos, soaps, tiny toothbrushes. Next to it were 2 plastic wine glasses, still in their sleeves, the kind you buy when you don't want to wash anything after. On top of those, 2 pairs of slippers with cardboard soles that said, "For guests." I touched the slippers like they'd burn me. Inside, I set the paper towels on the counter and said, too lightly, "Your firm is doing Airbnb now?" She didn't look up from her laptop. "What?" "In your trunk." "Oh." She waved a hand. "Staging kits. We're trying to make empty places feel less empty. People are weird about blank space." "Plastic wine glasses?" "Sometimes the owners want to previews a vibe," she said, smiling, and something in the way her mouth held the corners made my neck go hot. "You okay?" "Just asking," I said. I kissed her cheek and tasted coffee and spearmint and a sliver of something sweet. Sunday night, she had a double run in Plano and Richardson. She kissed our kids, Lucy with glowy stickers down her arm and Mikey with his hair sticking up like a cartoon, then grabbed a canvas bag and her laptop. "Back by midnight," she said. The door sighed shut. The house did that super quiet thing it does when a person leaves and you don't want it to be that quiet. I watched an episode of something with men who wear flannel and never smile. I scrolled too long. I went to throw her coffee cup in the sink and saw her work phone lying face down on the table. I told myself to put it face down on her nightstand and stop there. I did put it face down on her nightstand. I also saw the top of a screen in the corner of my eye because screens are sirens and I am not a monk. The preview was a thread with the subordinate named Leslie. Good kid, young, too eager to please. "I need 2461 Birch Hollow's vendor, PIN," Jenna had typed. "Owner wants me to verify smoke detectors tonight." Leslie had sent a 6-digit code. Jenna typed, "An 8910 Misty Meadow? The owner is bringing a buyer in the morning." Another code landed, then another for a townhome in a gated development off Spring Creek. My stomach threw off sparks. Vendor pins are supposed to be temporary. At midnight, they unlock a world that's empty for a reason. I closed the phone like it could bite and stared at the ceiling fan move dust. My brain did that thing it does on jobs when I trace a line back from the hole to the source. If A, then B. If she had 3 codes tonight, how many did she have last week? If she was verifying smoke detectors, why did she need plastic wine glasses? If she was meeting an owner at 8 a.m., why was there a text from him that read, "Tonight works better. Less eyes. Bring the good matches"? I crawled into bed, then got back up, because lying there felt like drowning in place. At 12,054 a.m., our neighbor from 2 doors down, a retired flight instructor named Mr. Ellison who spends his evenings flying a little drone over the greenbelt like he's patrolling the neighborhood for fun, sent me a video. "Thought this was one of your clients," he wrote. The video showed a roofline I recognized, 2461 Birch Hollow, a standard issue new build with black trim windows and a lawn that looks like a photo. The drone hovered back. In the frame, the back porch lights blinked on, then off, then on again. A man and a woman walked into view through a sliding door. I would have known her silhouette anywhere. His was taller, shoulders slightly rolled, the posture of someone who looks down at his phone for a living. The timestamp stamped the night into my eye like a hot brand. I watched the video twice. I set my phone down. I picked it up and watched it again, because apparently I wanted to bleed from the same cut until it got numb. At 1008 a.m., another message chimed. "HOA violation warning. Subject line in all caps. Forwarded by no one and everyone because everyone reads those." It was a template with a photo of a similar black trim palace and the words "unauthorized occupancy," "suspected," and "quiet hours," "violation" in neat bullet points. I stared at "suspected" like the word could absolve anyone. When Jenna got home, she set her canvas bag by the door and peeled off her shoes like the dog always chewed the laces. She kissed my forehead, the kind of kiss you give a thermostat to check if it's on. "You're up." "I couldn't sleep," I said. I waited a beat. "How were smoke detectors?" "Loud," she said, and giggled like she was still 30 and we were at that kitchen with the lemons. She walked to the sink and poured water. My mouth worked around the sentence. I didn't say Mr. Ellison's drone has better night vision than I do. Instead, I asked, "Do you know a guy named Blake?" She froze in the softest way, a pause so small you could miss it if you were a kinder man than me. "He's the consultant I told you about, the owner of that short-term portfolio." "Right." I nodded, like my head wasn't 2 sizes too small for the thought inside it. "He texted you tonight. You should know your less eyes has a camera." Her glass hit the counter a little too loud. "You looked at my phone?" "It was face up," I said. and we both heard the stupidity in that defense sit down in the room. She exhaled. Caleb, you're being paranoid. About what? I asked. About my job, she said. We have to check these things. Owners pay for access. Sometimes it's late. It's safer when no one's around. Safer with the matches? I said. Safer with a consultant who writes sentences like a man pretending he's a movie? She closed her eyes. I'm tired. So am I said. Sleep. We can talk in the morning. What I didn't say was that when morning came, I'd still be staring at that blue-white glow on the drone video like a sin in a church. Monday hit like it always does. Breakfast spills. Lucy crying because her shoelace wouldn't listen. Mikey insisting superheroes don't brush teeth. I did the pack and strap routine, kissed 2 heads, and drove them to school with a smile I had to muscle into my cheeks. On the way home, I stopped by a house in Lake Highlands to set bait stations for rats that had been throwing parties by the AC condenser. I kept my phone in my pocket because I didn't trust my hands. Around noon, a courier with calves like pistons dropped an envelope at our door. I signed and ripped it open. Inside was a letter addressed to the property firm, copied to Jenna. It had a lot of words: lawyer's love, demand, indemnify, trespass. But the gist punched clear: cease unauthorized access. Unoccupied homes are not to be used for private experiences, followed by the name of a company. Blake controlled, and the phrase private experiences, in quotes like his lawyer had thrown up in her mouth as she typed. I sat on the porch steps and watched a kid on a scooter launch off our curb and thought, this is the part where men make dumb choices. This is where we decide to tail people in our pickup or throw a coffee mug because we need a sound to match our head. I stood up. I went inside. I made a folder and put the letter in it. I printed the HOA notice and the drone screenshots Mr. Ellison sent when I asked. I printed the text from Leslie that I'd seen without permission and hated myself for reading. I put them in the folder too. That night, I told Jenna I had a late call in Garland. I did not. I parked across from a house on Misty Meadow and watched the smart lock glow like a lighthouse. At 11,037, a car I'd never seen carried a person I knew better than my own reflection. She walked with her head down and keys in her purse she didn't need because she had numbers. The door beeped. The light changed. She disappeared inside with someone darker and sure. I went home. I slept on the couch and dreamed of tiny feet in the walls. The next morning, I made pancakes like Sunday's piece could be borrowed on a Tuesday. Jenna came downstairs in a blouse that was too nice for a day of paperwork. Her hair was pulled back, her neck bare. I wanted to put my hand there and also never touch her again. Eat, I said. We're adults, she said, smiling. Then talk to me like one, I said. She set the plate down. Blake is a client. He's a consultant transitioning a portfolio. He asked me to help him evaluate some units for long-term readiness. There's nothing else going on. There's a drone video, I said. Her eyes flashed. You had Mr. Ellison follow me? He patrols the neighborhood for sport, I said. You were at Birch Hollow at 1 a.m, fireplace on, glasses out. That's not smoke detectors. She stared at me like I'd crawled out of a vent with a rat in my mouth. You're overreacting. No, I said, and my voice did a thing I didn't recognize. I'm underreacting the way men do when they want their house to keep smelling like pancakes. She pushed back from the table. I have a meeting. We'll talk tonight. That would be a first, I said. She watched me like she was deciding which bridge to burn and walked out the door. I didn't follow. I did something worse. I called the HOA on Birch Hollow and asked about their security system like a vendor who needed to know schedule updates. People tell you things if you sound tired and polite. We've had abuse at vacant units, the manager said. Residents complain about experiences, whatever that means. We flagged 4 addresses. We sent warnings. She named 2 addresses from Jenna's texts, and a third I'd seen on a sticky note by our sink. Then she said, we're coordinating with owners to lock codes during off hours. If you're servicing, call us. We'll put you on the approved list. Approved list. My stomach did a slow roll. I said thank you like it was any other Tuesday and hung up. Then I called the property firm and asked for compliance. A woman with a warm voice and a spine like a flagpole listened to my awkward story and said, "We'll look into it. We take access control very seriously." "Are you Jenna's husband?" I said yes. She said, with the softness of a nurse holding a needle, "I'm sorry you have to call us." That night, Jenna didn't come home until 2. I didn't turn on a light. I listened to her set her bag down on the rug like the bag could absorb the shock. "You awake?" she said. "I'm not sleeping well," I said. She sat on the edge of the couch. "I didn't do anything you think I did." I wanted to believe her so badly my throat hurt. "Then tell me what you did." "I helped a client evaluate spaces," she said. "We use them as sets. That's it." "At 1 a.m., I said. "With wine." Her breath hitched. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" "Caleb, you're strangling me with details," she said. And I heard the snarl under the softness. "The details are the only part that's not moving," I said. "If we let those slide, we can call it anything and sleep." "I can't do that." She stood. "I'm going to shower." "Shower in honesty," I said, and she flinched like I'd turned the water cold. She walked upstairs. I stared at the ceiling and pictured mice running the wires. The next morning, a man knocked on my door at 9 with a smile that practiced itself in mirrors. He wore a sport coat the color of money and a watch that could pay our mortgage for a month. "Caleb," he said like we were meeting on a show. "Blake Harmon. I was in the area. Thought I'd stop by and clear the air." "You thought wrong," I said, because my mouth finally did something my brain had been begging for. "Look," he said, lowering his voice like we were conspirators. "Jenna is a star. She's a closer. She's been invaluable on this transition. I don't want you feeling threatened by late nights and optics." "Optics," I said, savoring the fake. "Is that what you call bodies in a house with the fireplace on?" His smile thinned. "Caleb, don't be provincial. Dallas runs on connections. Sometimes those happen after hours. We're all adults." "Some of us are parents," I said. "We buy dinosaurs at Target and fill out reading logs. We don't light matches in empty houses. We don't use experiences as a noun when it's just how to get away with things you can't own." He raised both palms. "No harm, no foul. No one's out anything. Except the HOA fines. Except the owner's trust. Except my marriage." "That's between you and Jenna," he said. "I'm talking business." "Business is the shape of people's lives," I said. "Not a game you play in other people's kitchens." He tilted his head like a bird who found a shiny thing he couldn't quite swallow. "Do you know what your wife is capable of?" he asked. "She could be running a division." "She already runs a home," I said. "I'd like her to show up for its meetings." He tucked his business card into my palm like I'd asked. It had Hospitality Consultant under his name. The H in Harmon looked like a ladder. "I hope we can be friends," he said. "It's easier that way." "Rats are easier when you give them peanut butter," I said. "They still chew through the bag." He smiled like he didn't understand, or like he did and didn't care. He walked back to his car, the kind with a grill like a grin, and drove off. I stood on the porch and let the heat punch me. Then I went inside and called a lawyer. I didn't plan some vigilante sting. I'm a pest guy, not a detective. But I know routes. I know how things move from A to B. I also know HOA managers who will answer a call from a vendor who has saved them $1,000 by showing them where rats come in through the ivy they love. I called one and said, "I have a family situation that's about to intersect with your security audit. If I coordinate with your security vendor on a lockout during a scheduled VIP showing, is that within your purview?" She said, "If the owner authorizes it, and if entry is unauthorized, we'll coordinate with police, yes." I said. The owner, in this case, is the firm's client. He's asked for a clean transition. He does not want his homes used for anything but showings. Put it in writing, she said. I did. She replied with a time window and a note I could show any responding officer. Codes disabled 2 p.m., 3 p.m., except for master keys. Do not grant temporary pins. Then I called compliance at Jenna's firm and said, there's a VIP showing scheduled at 8, 9, 10, Misty Meadow at 2 on Friday. If anyone uses a borrowed vendor code to access the property before the authorized party arrives, that's unauthorized entry, correct? That's correct, the woman said. Who is the authorized party? The owner and the listing agent, I said. Not a consultant, not a manager, not anyone without written authorization. We have an audit on that address, she said, something like surprise touching her tone. We'll be in the area. Friday came hot and flat. I took Lucy and Mikey to my sister's, told them Mommy had a meeting and Daddy had too. My sister hugged me like she had a grip on a rope and I was dangling over water. I told her I was fine. I was not. At 1000, I parked 2 houses down from 8, 9, 10. The street was the kind of quiet where every car sounds like an announcement. At 1057, Jenna's SUV turned the corner. She pulled up by the curb and checked her phone. She wore a dress I'd always liked, simple and dark, the kind that made her look like she'd walked out of her own commercial. Blake slid out of the passenger side, already talking. Jenna keyed the code with her thumb like she'd done it 100 times. The lock blinked red. She tried again. The lock blinked red. She tried a third code, red. She turned to Blake. He took her phone, squinted, typed with that thumb roll certain men do, like their DNA was born to wield access. Red. He laughed, small. She didn't. The alarm chirped a warning tone and then wailed. It's the sound of a house calling for help in a neighborhood that doesn't expect to hear it. A neighbor peeked through blinds. A dog started barking like a clock. In less than 3 minutes, a patrol car swung in with the precision of a habit. The officer stepped out, one hand on her duty belt, her eyes registering shoes, hands, tension, the color red. Step back from the door, she said, calm and practiced. Jenna put her hands up. We're authorized, she said. Her voice was too bright. I'm the property manager. Authorization? The officer said. Jenna held up her phone. Blake held up his badge. The officer looked at both, then at the door, then back at them. She tapped her radio. I need confirmation from dispatch on an HOA lockout at 8910 Misty Meadow. 2 parties on scene claiming access. Her radio crackled. The HOA manager's voice came through like a chorus of accountants. Lockout confirmed 2 to 3. Authorized access limited to owner and listing agent. No vendor codes permitted. The officer nodded once. Ma'am, sir, you're going to step back onto the sidewalk. You can call the listing agent. Jenna's eyes found me then. She hadn't seen me on the curb. Her face did that thing faces do when the world rearranges itself. Caleb, she said, and my name in her mouth folded the air between us. I stood. I didn't walk toward her. I took a manila envelope from under my arm and handed it to the officer. I'm here as a witness, I said, also as a husband. These are documents relevant to a civil matter. It felt like I was narrating something on TV. It also felt like the only way I could stand without shaking. Sir, keep this about access, the officer said, but her voice had that small humane curve only people who spend too much time in cars at 2 in the afternoon can manage. It is, I said, and everything else is for another room. Jenna's mouth opened. We can explain, she said. You've been explaining for weeks, I said, and I finally let the tired into my voice. This is a lockout. Mine is a divorce. She staggered like I'd pressed a palm into her chest. Caleb, please! Blake tried to say something. The officer held up one finger without looking at him. Sir, I'm talking to Mrs. Barnes. She glanced at me. Is that your last name? It is for now, I said. Maybe not for long. The listing agent pulled up then, a woman in block heels and fury. She waved her brokerage card like a banner. Who tripped my lockout? We have buyers in 10. The officer pointed at Jenna and Blake. They attempted entry with unauthorized codes. The listing agent turned on Jenna with a kind of theatrical disbelief I'd only seen at toddler birthday parties. Are you out of your mind? She said. Blake stepped between them like a man playing at Courtly. Let's all take a breath, he said. Don't tell me how to breathe at my own listing, the agent said. I've got an HOA manager in my ear and a compliance officer on the way. Get off my porch. Jenna looked small. She looked like the woman who once balanced Lucy on one hip and a bag of groceries on the other and laughed when the bananas dropped. She also looked like a stranger who had practiced saying, "It wasn't like that," in mirrors. I didn't know how to hold both. I set them down on the curb and sat on my hands. Compliance arrived in a sedan that smelled like meetings. The woman with the warm voice and a steel spine stepped out. Jenna, she said, we need to talk in the car. She looked at Blake. You can call your counsel. She looked at me. Mr. Barnes, thank you for calling last week. We will handle this. I know you will, I said, and felt my shoulders drop an inch for the first time since the drone lit up a house I didn't own. The officer took my statement like she was filling out a puzzle. No, I didn't want to press charges. Yes, I would provide video if requested. No, the kids weren't present. She gave me a card, and her eyes flicked down like she knew I'd keep it in a drawer with things I'd rather not look at. The buyers arrived, a couple with matching sunglasses, and the air of people who were about to write a check with a lot of zeros. The listing agent smiled like a pro, reset the alarm, keyed a MasterCard, and ushered them in. In the reflection on the glass, I saw my face. I looked like a man who had been standing in one place too long and had grown moss. At home, I picked up the kids. I told them Mommy had to go to a work meeting and would call tonight. Lucy asked if we could make popcorn and watch that show where the chef yells, then apologizes and makes a sandwich. Mikey fell asleep on the couch mid-popcorn. I carried him to bed and tucked his hair behind his ear. I stood in the hall and watched the old nightlight throw a circle on the carpet like a small moon. At 9, the doorbell rang. Jenna stood on the porch with a cardboard box. It was the kind wine glasses come in empty. Her eyes were swollen, the kind of swollen that doesn't belong to a person who's been crying but to someone who's been told they have to sit very still or something will fall apart. She held her license in her other hand. Not her driver's license, her property manager license. It had a sticker in the corner now that hadn't been there this morning. Suspended pending investigation, she said. They took my access. I nodded, not because I was proud, but because the world was finally using words that felt like facts. I'm sorry, she said, and the apology was not for the porch or the box. It was for letting a habit become a life. I didn't think it would go like this. No one does, I said. That's why it goes like this. She looked past me into the hall, to the nightlight and the small moon. Can I kiss them? Good night? Tomorrow, I said. We'll write it down. She nodded. The box shifted in her arms. A plastic cup rattled inside. She smiled a small, broken smile. The box is empty. That's the problem. That's not the only problem, I said, but it's a start. She took a breath in like she was learning it again. Will you ever forgive me? She asked. I'll forgive the parts that belong to the woman who saved lemons for weeks just so a kitchen would smell like hope, I said. The rest is up to time and paperwork. I hate paperwork, she said, and laughed a little too high laugh that hurt both of us. We both do, I said. We learn. She turned to go, then turned back. Caleb? Yeah. You're a good father, she said. I'm going to be, I said, even on Thursdays. She walked down the path. She set the box on the front step like an offering and got in her car. When she drove away, the night felt like it exhaled. The next month was a collection of signatures and tiny kindnesses. Compliance sent a letter to the portfolio owners promising that access would be audited and codes would be controlled by a centralized platform that breathed like a slow animal.